Hi everybody, it's Virginia Milner back with another video for the DeKalb County Library System. And I thought we would do something I've been wanting to do for a while. A video or two ago, we did a herringbone wrap for an earring. And I wanted to do a large one for a focal for a bracelet. And I've done this before, actually. I did this before with this large oval bead that I made out of cloth. We're not going to do the cloth part, but I thought what we would do is take a large oval bead and do a herringbone wrap up here and use that as a focal for the bracelet. There we go. That's right. There we go. Ta-da. Glare. You know, I'm getting a lot of glare from the lights. Wish I could cover it up, but yeah. See if that's any better. Is that better? Let's go over there. Away from the light. Go away from the light. Anyway, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to make this pretty herringbone wrap out of this large oval-shaped bead. And I have a couple of these. This one is the red vein, and I also have some. Oh darn! Where's my little marker? I'll have to look at what it's made out of later, but I have some of these too, and I'm gonna give those out to the people that get the kits. Some red vein and some of those. They're jasper. It's not. I think it's not zebra jasper. I don't remember. I'll look it up. But anyway, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make this focal bracelet. And another thing that I did is make some earrings that I'm wearing with a really neat technique, a really neat shaping technique that came out like this. I did another video with some links that sort of ended up like this, but it was two halves of a half a wrap. And you put them together and you link them, and it came out really pretty. But I thought we could do that. Was very similar to what I did with this, with one continuous wrap. So I thought, I think that would make a really nice link for a bracelet. So I basically took this and made it about maybe a third of the size, maybe a little bit bigger than a third. And that is what we're going to do to use for links for our bracelet. And it's long enough, it's about 1/2 inch, and these are big enough so that you don't need many of them. In fact, I think I'm only going to need one. And then the other thing that we're going to have is another bead. And we're going to wrap that to complete our links. So that's what we're going to do today. Oh, and then we're going to make a wrapped, do I have one here? A wrapped S clasp. And I'm using these little beads to do that. It's still a red vein stone. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make a bracelet, and let's get started. What we're going to need are our usual pliers, round, square, or chain, and cutters. You'll need a ruler to cut your wire, and we're using 2 sizes of wire, 20 gauge for our links, and 22 gauge for our wrap around our bead. I'm also making my own jump rings. I like to do that when I'm going to use this copper colored wire. It's kind of hard to find wire that matches what I want, what my piece. So I find it's to my advantage to just go ahead and make my own. So I'll be making my own jump rings, and then I'm going to make a split ring to use to hook the clasp. Then I don't have to worry about my jump ring opening up or anything like that. So that's what we're doing today. Let's get this show, as my mother used to say, on the road. So the first thing that we're going to do, I'm going to show you how to do, is this lovely herringbone wrap, and you can see it a lot better now. So there's my herringbone wrap. Let's see if I can put it on something. Here we go. So there's my herringbone wrap that we're going to use as the focal for our bracelet. These are the links that we're going to use. Get that straight there. And then we're going to wrap some smaller beads. In my case, I think it's only one that I need to complete the length of my bracelet. And it's going to depend on the circumference of your arm. You want to measure your arm, and that will determine how many links you need and how many beads that you need. I'm only going to use one bead, and then you can add as many links or jump rings as you need to finish it off. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is show you how to make this nice, lovely herringbone wrap. So first of all, I need a post. I need something for my bead I need something to wrap around, basically. So I'm getting 3 inches of wire because my bead, we've got to do a little bit of measurement. My bead is about 1 inch, and I need another inch on each side in order to wrap around and to form my loops. So I'm giving myself a good 3 inches for the post out of 20 gauge wire for starters. Then I'm going to use my 22 gauge wire to perform the wrap. Now, my rule of thumb, well, basically what I did was take a string and wrap it around my bead to see, and did a very loose wrap around my bead just to see how much I would need to complete a loop. And it was about 2 3/4 inches, but with each wrap, you're going to need more wire. So I figured the best thing to do would be to give myself 3 inches per wrap times however many wraps I want to do. On this one, I did 5 wraps. So I gave it's 15 inches, and I gave myself another inch or 2 just to be safe. So I gave myself 17 inches, and I ended up cutting some off, but I'd rather have more. And then if I can make another wrap, great. If not, I just cut it off. So today I'm going to give myself 18 inches, a full 1.5 feet of wire, so that I can get at least 5 wraps out of it. That's what I want. So I'm going to give myself that. And we're going to get started. See, this is curved a little bit, but I really don't need to straighten it out because I'm about to wrap it around. So the first thing that I want to do is take my, my little stem, and I'm going to make a loop. It doesn't have to be a big loop, just enough to accommodate the jump ring that I'm going to use to attach it to my links. And if you want to be extra careful, I can make a loop and a half, just so, since I'm not wrapping it, then this way it'll be definitely closed. And then what I'm going to do is bump it back so that it's nicely on top of my stem. I just want to center it so that it goes up and then it goes around the stem there. So there we go. So then I'm going to take my 22 gauge wire, and you can use, it depends on what you're wrapping. This is pretty substantial bead. So I'm going to use 22 gauge. You can use 24 gauge. You can even use the 20 gauge, but the 20 gauge is going to take up so much space that you won't be able to wrap it as many times. If you use 24 gauge, you can wrap it even more times because it doesn't take up as much space as the 22. But I decided to go with the middle road. So now what I want to do is just make a very, very small loop on the tip of my 22 gauge wire. So I put my wire in the pliers at the very tip, just grab it at the tip, and I just make a small loop. So we got that all the way around. And I'm going to slide it on my wire just to make sure it's not too loose. And if it's really loose, I want to close it up just a little bit. So I'm going to use my pliers to just close up that loop just a tiny bit so it won't rock around too much on my wire. Make sure that's going to fit. Yes. So now it's not quite as loose. And then I'm going to turn this so that the wire is going straight up and my little loop is flat, like that. So then I'm going to put my bead on the stem, and I'm going to slide my 22 gauge wire, wrapping wire, on the stem. And now see, the reason that I flattened that my loop is so that it will rest like a little shelf on the bottom of my bead. So there. I'm going to push that so that it's nice and close at the bottom, and it just rests as flat as I can get it. So there's where I'm starting. So the first thing that I'm going to do is bring my wire, which is already finding its way up the side of my bead. I'm going to bring it up the side of my bead, and I'm going to wrap it around the top of my bead. And I like to stay close to it. Instead of being way out here, I like to really guide it. So I'm wrapping it around the front of my bead. And then around the stem, I call it the stem, like that. And then I'm going to bring it down the other side of my bead. And then fold it over the top, right around here in across the front of my bead, and wrap it all the way around until the wire is back where I began. So there's my first full wrap. And then I'm going to bring my wire back down. Now this is going to bend because you're really jockeying it, but that's okay. So I'm going to bring my wire back down behind the first wrap. And across the front of my bead again, and wrap all the way around to the other side. and straight. And then I'm going to take it back down behind that first wrap, across the top in the front, wrap it around. And now I have 2 wraps. See that? 2 nice wraps. Bring it down behind that second wrap, across the top, wrap it all the way around, and then down the other side, behind that second wrap, across the top, wrap it around, and notice how I just turn. I turn my bead. I think it's easier to do it that way than it is to try to wrap and do like that. Just makes it a lot simpler. And again, every time you do this, you want to go behind the wrap that was before it and in front of your bead and wrap around, and behind the wrap that was before it. Let's straighten this out a little bit. There we go. Go back behind my wrap, across the front, wrap it around, back behind. Now, how many is this? This is 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 full wraps. Let's do one more. Back behind the last wrap, across the top, wrap it around, back behind the last wrap, across the top, and wrap it around, and that is it. There we go. So I have 5 full wraps. And you can count them in the back here by the rings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or you can count the actual wraps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there we go. I have 5 wraps on each side. Awesome. And I had a little left over. Now I used 18 inches. And like I said, I wanted to make sure I had enough. So I did 3 times 5 is 15. I gave myself 18, and I only have about an inch left. So I would give myself at least, I would actually go with 3.5 inches or 3 1/4 inches per wrap. If you want to do more wraps, you can. I have space back here as long as you can wrap it. As long as you have bead space on the side, you can keep wrapping. This looks good. That's going to be pretty on my arm. Yeah. So now all I need to do is take this, the remainder from the tail, and I'm just going to cut it off. And I like to give myself a little bit of a loop. I can just make a little loop back here so that I don't have to worry about anything sticking out, or you can just clip it off and then hide the end in between your little wraps, whichever works for you. I give myself just a tiny loop. So I'm just going to cut it off with about 1/8 of an inch, give myself a little kind of a half loop. Just turn it under and squeeze it down with my pliers. And I don't have anything sticking out. Nice and easy. So now I need to make my loop on the top. Gave myself a 1 1/2 down here. I'm going to do the same up here. I think I only need about 1 inch of wire for that, if that much. Yeah, I don't even think I need a whole inch. I give myself 1.5, so I'm going to go down to that little part of my pliers to make my loop. It's about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, has to go all the way around. So I'm going to give myself about 3/4 of an inch of wire. And that should suffice. I'm just going to cut this little tip off. Okay, and make my loop. So I'm grabbing my my wire about 1/3 of the way down my pliers. Make a loop. Now I can see that I have too much because I already have a wrap. And look at all this extra wire. I don't need that much. So I'm going to cut that off. And I'm down to about 1/2 inch. Let's see if that works. There's a wrap and 1/2. So all I needed was about 1.5 inches. Bump that back so that it's resting on top here. Nice extension. And there's my 2 loops. Put it on here. You can see better. There we go. And there's my focal. Little focal bead. There we go. So now I'm going to show you how to make the links. So what I did, you just need to determine how long you want your links to be. When I finish, this is a good inch long. And this finished, including the rings on the end, is almost 2 inches, almost 2 inches long. So that with this is going to give me 3 inches. Then I'm going to be putting a jump ring in the middle, and then I'm going to have another bead that I'm going to wrap here. And my arm is about 7.5 inches, so you kind of get an idea of how much you need from there. So this is basically all I'm going to need. But you can add more jump rings in a chain in order to make it longer if you need to. And that should do it. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to make our little link. And all I did, you don't need any special prop for this. I took an ink pen in order to shape it. You just need some kind of shape, something cylindrical to shape your center, the center of your piece here. And so what I want is for it to finish up 3 inches. Each one of these wraps, it just depends. I would give myself about 4 inches just to be safe. I think I gave myself 3 on this. 3, give yourself 3.5 inches, depending on how long you want it to be. This one finishes up at an inch. So this is about, each one of my little half moon shapes is about 1/2 inch long. So that's an inch. A little more than an inch because it's shaped. So we're looking at 3/4 of an inch. That's 1.5 inches. And then each side, give yourself another inch. So 3.5 inches. There we go. Boom, that's it, 3.5. And we'll see where we end up. It's probably more than I need, but that's better than too little. And if you want to really be safe, give yourself 4 inches. Let's go with the 3.5. Oh, should have held on to that, but that's okay. And now what I want to do is bend this until I have a U shape. Bring my little tips together, like so. Cross them over and pull until I have this little loop. I'm going to keep pulling it, pulling, 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 pulling. And what you can do, if you can see one looks like it's longer than the other, kind of measure it a little bit just to be safe. It's about 1.5 inches. Flip that over. That's about 1 inch, a little more than 1.5 inches. So this one's longer. So I'm going to pull this side so that it gets a little longer. And I'm going to just keep pulling until I have a small loop. So there's my loop. And now what I'm going to do is shape it. I'm going to start it with my fingers, just get it started with a kind of a graceful curve. Just to get it started. Then I'm going to take, in this case, my ink pen, and I'm going to place the loop end on my ink pen, and I'm just going to wrap the sides around the pen. Normally I would lay it down, but I'm trying to make sure you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to wrap these sides around the ink pen. Just keep going, 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 going until I have a nice little kind of a teardrop shape, kind of, sort of. I'll take it off of there. There we go. And then I'm going to shape it the way I want. So if you have one already made, you can kind of look at what you have. You can see that that's very, very open. And then I'm going to squeeze it after I make my loops so that it's a little thinner. So there I go. Now, if I wanted to, I could really, really squeeze it until it was a lot thinner. It just depends on the look that you're going for. So there we go. So now I need to make my loops at the top. And that only takes, depending on the size of the loops that you want, it doesn't take very much, about maybe 3/4 to 1 inch. That's all. But I want to make sure I have at least 3/4 of an inch, and I have about 1 inch on each side. So that's lovely. And I'm going to get this little bend out, kind of straighten it up. And now I'm going to make this little loop, these little 2 loops. So let's just see. I'm going to go down. I want it to be comparable to the one that's down here, but this is a kind of a teardrop shape, so it's going to look a little bit different, which is fine. So I'm going to go down about 1/3 of the way down my pliers again. Grab the wire with the pliers, make sure that no wire sticking out the back. I'm going to make a nice loop. So there's my loop. Obviously, it does not need to be that far away. So I'm going to cut this down to about ½ inch. And these are things that you can do just to determine how much you need. And I'd rather start with too much than too little, because if you have too little, you have to start all over again. So I'm going to go down, grab my wire, nothing sticking out the back, and make my loop. And there we go. I think that's a good one. But I'm going to do the other side and then make adjustments as I need to. So I need to take that down to about ½ inch, like I did on the other side. Watch that end. I like to grab something and turn the end down into it so that when I cut, it just drops off into the bottom. I don't have to worry about wires flying. Does that look like half? That looks kind of big. Yeah, that's a little bigger than I want. Let's take it off tiny, tiny bit more. There we go. That's better. That little guy. And let's make my loop. Again, about 3/4 of the way down my pliers. And if you ever question it, you can always slide your pliers on your loop just to see how big the first one you made was. With my loop. Here we go. Close it up. Make sure it's nice and closed. There we go. And now I want to make sure these go together. So here we go. Like that. Now I'm going to make some adjustments because this is a little wider than I want it to be. In fact, it might be a little bigger than I want it to be. So what I'm going to do is close up my loop some more. So I'm going to cut that down just a little bit, maybe an 1/16 of an inch in each loop. Cut it down. Okay, let's close that up on each side. And now let's see what I've got. Better, much better. Let's push my little rings together. And now it's still a little big, so I'm going to squeeze that and see if that does it. I want this to be thinner to match this one. A little bigger. So I might need to make my loop just a little smaller. And all of the changing of size is going to be from your loop. So that's where all of your adjustments can come in. Make that a little smaller. Check it out. Squeeze. Not bad. I can make it a little bit smaller. Actually, it'll match this one better. I can make it a little smaller, and you just make your adjustments until you're happy with the size. Let me cut both of these down just a little bit. And that is my loop set. The more I cut my loops down, the less wire I have, and the smaller my little link will be, which is about right, I think, now. Let's see here. Push them together. I push them past each other and then let them spring back into place. And take my flat pliers, push them together, and just make my adjustments. Get a little bit more. And I think we have a winner. There we go. Yes, there's my link. Nice. And that's how we do that. Should I do it one more time? Yeah, it's enough. I'm already going to have to make earrings out of my extras. And what you want to do when you make it, so that it won't be just sticking out on the sides of your arm, you want to kind of curve it around after you link everything together, curve it around so it fits the curvature of your wrist. But now we're going to link, and in order to do that, I need to make jump rings. So I'm going to grab some 20 gauge wire. Is this 20? No, it's 22. I was going to say you can use little scraps. If you had any little scraps left, you could use those. But I do not have scraps. I was very thrifty today. So now I'm going to take my 20 gauge wire, and all I'm going to do is take my pliers and grab my wire to decide how big you want your jump rings to be. I have some already made. And just loop it on your round nose pliers. So I'm going to go about a little more than a third of the way down my pliers. And I'm going to grasp my wire, make sure that the tip's not sticking out the back. And then I'm going to start to rotate. Get some light on here. There we go. That's better. Now I'm going to start to rotate and make a loop. We're just basically making a loop. And once I have a complete loop, I want the little tail to be sticking out in the direction of the end of my pliers, or the tip of my pliers. And I'm going to keep rotating, making sure, oh, this got stuck on my hand, making sure that the wire stays in the same spot when you're winding, so that it doesn't get any bigger or any smaller. And the tip will continue to drift out. The tip of your wire will continue to drift out towards the tip of your pliers as your coil starts to grow. So I'm going to give myself a few rings here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my little tip. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to clip it off. Clip one of my rings off. Just grab it, clip it off. There's my coil. Now let's start to cut the rings. I like to put it right up against the end of my coil with my pliers. I guess I should say put the back of my pliers against the end of my coil and clip. There's one ring. Clip the next one. Nice. Clip the next one. Always resting the back of my pliers against the end of my wire. Clip. Here we go. And then this is the last one. Let's go ahead and clip that excess off. There we go. And there are my jump rings. Yay! So now let's link everything together. I've already, well, let's just start with this one. Now there's a little space up there, and I don't want that space there, so I'm going to roll this down a little further so it's nice and close against the top of my wrap. So there we go. Let's roll that back a little tiny bit so that it's right on top. There. Okay. So now for linking, go ahead and get some of these jump rings out here. Now I've gone over the proper way to open a jump ring many times, but I'm going to do it again because, oh, there's more jump rings over there. Because I want to make sure that you're not damaging them. And one thing that you want to do, I use 20 gauge to make my jump rings, but just to make sure they're nice and strong. Get off of there. Before I open them, I like to give them a little bit of a pounding just so that they'll get nicely strengthened. And when I pound, the sound goes off of my computer because it doesn't like it. So don't worry if it gets very quiet. Flip them over. And I'm just using this little rubber mallet that I got from the dollar store. Now you can go buy a steel mallet or a steel hammer and a block, but I have not found it necessary as of yet. Now, proper way to open your jump rings. Grab your jump ring on one side of the opening with your pliers. Take your thumb with the on the other side of the opening and just push down until your jump ring is open. So now I have a nice open jump ring that I can close up easy as pie. Can you see that? Oh, come back here. Here's another one that's already open. Now here's the other way to properly open your jump ring is to grab one half of the jump ring with your pliers on the one side of the opening, and then take your other pliers on the other side of the opening and give it a twist. There we go. Nice open jump ring. Easy peasy. Yeah, that's blurry. Easy peasy. George and Wheezy. Okay, so there we go. So I have some jump rings. Let's start our links. Let's see here. Just gonna take one of my open jump rings. There we go, open jump ring. Slide it on one end of my focal, grab one of my links, slide that on my jump ring as well. Actually, did I do that on this one? Yeah. Slide that on my jump ring as well and close. Now, because I opened it from side to side, I can close it side to side. I can just push it back together. I pushed it down to open it, and I can push it closed. Nice and simple. Or you can use the twist motion with your pliers if you want to. And I like to err on the side of extreme caution, so I'm going to put another jump ring on just to make sure I have extra security. So I'm going to slide my jump ring on my focal and into the loops of my attachment, my link. And here's the other way that you can close it. Instead of using your fingers, you can just take your pliers, squeeze it together, and then make whatever adjustments you need to. And now I have, and I kind of like the double jump ring because it looks like a continuation of these, the wraps that I have going, or it just kind of corresponds with the wraps that I have going on my focal. I think it makes it look pretty. Make sure everything's nicely closed. I like to take my fingernail. If I can't get my thumbnail in there, I figure it's pretty good. I just like to make sure it's very, very closed. Just give it a little jiggle. Okay, there we go. There's my one link. Yeah. Now the other way you could do it, if you would rather, you could put the wrapped link on there first. You could put that on first next to it, but I just thought that would be pretty to have that first. I could put that, put it that way, and then put this down here, or I can do the opposite. It's entirely up to you which way you want to design that. Either way works. But this way I have the focus on my little focal bead, and then this comes along later. Pretty. And then if you want to add another one of these, if your arm's a little bit bigger than mine maybe, you can add another link to keep it going. Okay, so now I need to show you how to wrap your bead. Very simple. So again, I'm going to get, actually, do I want to wrap it with, did I wrap with 20? Yeah, I'm going to wrap it with a 22 gauge so that it matches the wrap on my focal. So I'm going to take some 22 gauge wire. In this case, my little red vein bead is about 1/4 of an inch long. What I like to do is give myself, if I'm going to wrap my bead, give myself a good wrap. I like to give myself at least 1/2 inch just to make one wrap. But if I want to make 2 or 3 wraps, I want to give myself a good inch to 1 1/4 inches on each side of my bead. The best way to know how much to get is to put your bead on. If I'm going to do 1 inch on each side, here's my bead. There's my inch. And then if I want to give myself an extra inch, I can. So in this case, this is about 1/4 of an inch long. So I would need 2 1/4 inches. I'm going to give myself 2 1/2, just because. If I need to clip some off, no problem. 2 1/2 inches. Okay. I'm going to slide my bead on. That doesn't look like enough. So I want to give myself several wraps. So I'm going to give myself a good 3 inches. I can use this for something else. I'm going to give myself 3 inches. Slide my bead on. Go down about halfway. I'm going to bend back my wire on one side and then bend it back on the other side in the opposite direction. So this is what I have. And now I'm going to start my wrap. And the only reason I bent the other side is so that it won't fall off while I'm trying to make a wrap, because I want to put a little cap on top. I could have taken it off and just done the wrap, but I want to give it a little bit of a cap on top of the bead. And in order to do that, I have to have the bead in there. So I'm going to slide my pliers down onto the wire. It's bent back. Slide my pliers down about, in my case, I'm giving it about a third of the way. That's my rule of thumb for this particular one. Yes, it's back this way. Slide it down about a third of the way down my pliers. Grab my wire, nice and close to the bead. I'm going to bring my wire across the top of my pliers. Now I have about a half a loop. I'm going to continue under the pliers. And now I have a full loop. So there's the loop. Put my pliers back in, and I'm going to wrap the wire around under my pliers and over the bead. So it's just in between the pliers and the bead. Now notice I'm using a natural semi-precious bead. And when you get things like that, they're usually, this is kind of drilled a little bit off to the side, which is fine. It kind of lends to the organic look that we're going to have when I finish. So when you look at it and you say, oh, it's not exactly in the middle, that's okay. Try not to be too anal about it. It will be fine. Okay, let's start my wrap. So I'm going to wrap it in between my pliers and my bead. And I'm going to make sure my wraps are getting bigger. Let me move this so that you can kind of see what I'm doing. My wraps are, I'm wrapping the wire around itself so that it ends up in a little bit of a cap on top of the bead when I'm finished. So there we have that. Let's see if I can see. So I have a little cap on top of my bead. And then I can clip off the end. And I have the number of wraps that I want. I think this is short enough so that I'm just going to push it down. I don't think I'm going to cut it off because I would like that little bit of extra as part of my wrap. So I'm going to take the tip of my pliers and grab the tip of the wire and just bend it into a little curve. Take my flat pliers and push it down against the other wire. And if you can slide it under the other wires, that's fine too. And there we go. And let's go do the other side. And I want this to be wrapped in the same direction as this one. Grab my pliers, slide it down to about where the other loop was. Let's see here. So there we go, about a third of the way down, which is my mantra. Okay, there we go. Take my wire over the top of my pliers, turn my pliers up so that it's kind of on top of my bead. Bring the wire around and under my pliers and just wrap. Just wrap between the pliers and the bead and wrap the wire around itself until I have a nice little cap. When I get to the end, I'm going to turn that end into a little curve and push it down against the other wires. Right there on top of the bead. And there's my little cap right there on top. Here's my little wrapped wire, my little wrapped bead. And I'm going to attach it to my link with a jump ring. Grab my jump ring, slide it on the other half of my link, slide my bead on, close it up. Awesome. Make sure it's nicely closed. Yes. Grab another jump ring. Here's one that's open. Slide it on my link. And the biggest thing that you want to make sure that you do when you're using double jump rings is not loop one jump ring inside of the other. You want to make sure you keep those separate. So I'm going to slide that in my little link, the loop of my link, and then over to my wrapped bead. Where's my jump ring? Nope, see, I got it caught in my jump ring. That's why I like to stretch it out. Let the jump ring drop down in the center and then slide it into the loop of my bead. Close it up. Let's check it out. Make sure that both of my jump rings are separate. Nope, see, got caught. Let's open that up again. All right, let's see what happened. See, I got caught in my other jump ring. Don't want that. So let's get that out. Got it away from the jump ring. Slide it in my bead loop. And I can see they're side by side now. And close it. And there we go. There we go. There we go. Very nice. Now I'm gonna hook this to the other side. Let's open up my jump rings. Oh, I need to show you how to make a split ring. We did that. Let me cut this off because opening them up is going to be a pain. Okay, now I'm down to one jump ring. And slide that on my focal bead, close it up, nice and tight. Another jump ring, open it, slide that on my little loop, link. Together, there we go. Slide that on my links. And through my focal link loop, close that up. There we go. Let's push these together a little closer. There we go. Nice. This paraphernalia out of the way, as you can see. There we go. Very nice. Is that clear? I think so. So now all that's left is some shaping. Isn't that pretty? I really think I could use another link on this one. But what I want to do first is kind of shape this. So I'm going to bend this just a little bit, just curve it a tiny bit. Let's give it a little curve. I'm just holding the ends and I'm curving this down so that when I put it on my wrist, it doesn't just stick out the sides. There we go. And then I'm going to do the same with my links. Just give it a little curvature. Just kind of curve that down so that when I put it on, it rests nicely against my wrist instead of sticking out at right angles. So there we go. Now what you can do at this point, you can make yourself a little bit of a chain if you want to. If you need a lot more, you can add another link. For instance, if I added another link here, it would be too long because this takes it up to about 6 3/4, and then another one on this side would take it up to about 7 let me see, this little about 6 5/8. That would take it up to 7 3/4, and then I'd have a clasp, and it would be too big. However, the way it is now it's only about 5 3/4 inches long. When I add my jump rings, that's going to take it up to about 6 inches, and I need 7.5. So what do I do? What do I do? I add a chain of jump rings. That's what. So attach a jump ring here. Close it up. Do my double jump ring thing just because that's what I do. Okay. Go to the other side. So jump ring. Close it. Come back. Close it up. Another jump ring. Slide it on my loop. Close. Just jiggle it until I can get it to closing position that I want. Do a fingernail test. That's fine. Let's see what I've got now. So I've got one jump ring on each side. That gives me about 6 inches, just like I predicted. So I'm going to give myself another jump ring, making my little chain. Open, attach through both the jump rings, close it, other one, slide that through the two jump rings, close. Mini chain. Let's see where that puts me. And I'm going to make a clasp. Okay, yes, that's good. And another set of jump rings on the other side. More. And then I'm going to make an S clasp, a wrapped S clasp. And I like those because they will attach on either side. It doesn't matter if you're right or left-handed. They're very versatile because it's separate. It's a separate piece. Okay, so that gives me about 6 1/4. So the last thing that I need is a split ring that I'm going to use to attach my actual clasp. And I use a split ring because it's either that or a closed jump ring. And because I want everything to match, I'm going to go ahead and make a split ring. Make sure this is completely closed. Give it a little little jiggle. Okay. Make sure that's closed up completely. Other side. Very good. Okay. So now I'm going to make a split ring. Again, split ring is closed, and so I don't have to worry about anything opening up. I don't want to do a double ring to hook my clasp, because then you would have to put your clasp through 2 rings, and that's just problematic. So I'm going to take my pliers. I'm going to give myself a little more than 1/3 of the way down my pliers, because I want a decent size. So I'm going to go just not quite halfway down and make a loop. So there's a full loop, and I'm going to keep going until I have a second loop. So there we go. So there's my split ring. Clip it off, make sure I don't catch my second ring in there. Just want to clip the first one. And then this is what I'm going to use to hook my clasp. Sure it's nice and round. There we go. So this is going to be for my clasp. So the other one, the other side. Just a little more than 1/3, but not quite a halfway down my pliers. And that's my pliers. Yours might be different. So it just depends on the size loop you want, and that depends on the size of your pliers as far as how far down your pliers you want to go. So there we go. So now I'm going to show you how to make, let's go ahead and put these on. Up. Open up my jump ring, slide on my loop. I might make that a little bigger, actually, now that I'm looking at it. Yeah, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger because I want to make sure that my clasp can fit in there easily. So I'm going to go a full half of the way down my pliers instead of almost half. Okay, so let's grab my pliers again. And my 20 gauge wire. I go all the way down, maybe a little more than halfway down my pliers. So I have plenty of space for my clasp. Okay, let's cut that off and see what it looks like. Remember just to clip the first wire. You don't want to clip the whole thing. Looks a little bit better size-wise. Yeah, I think that looks good. Let's try that on here. Just want to make sure I have plenty of space to hook my clasp in. How's that look? I think it does. And when you're putting on a bracelet, you don't want to have to fumble. So I want to make sure it's of substantial size so that when I go to fasten it, it's easy. And I think I'm going to try this little S clasp out. See. Works okay. Yes, that works just fine. Okay, let's do another one. A little more than halfway down. Making my loop. And keep on going until I have a second loop. And then just to be cautious, you can open that up a little bit, just kind of separate it away from the middle link so that when you clip, you can make sure not to clip the second row of your link. Just want to clip the end. Okay. Put this on the other jump ring. Close that up. There we go. And let's do the other side. Open one jump ring. Slide on my loop. My split ring. Close it up. Let's grab the other jump ring. Open. And slide that on. Come on. Get over here. All right. Something looks off. Take that off of there and see what's going on down here. I'm missing a jump ring. Oh, because I took it off. That's why. Okay. Slide that on. Okay, and attach it to my split ring. Close it up. And there we go. So let's see what I have now. Okay, I have about 6.5, and now I'm going to make my my S-clasp, but I'm making a wrapped S-clasp, so it's going to be a little longer than this one. So what I'm going to do is take a small one of my little red vein beads, and I'm going to make a wrapped, just a kind of a fancy schmancy S-clasp, because I want to. It's going to look something like this, but bigger, because I have a bigger bead. So that's going to give me another good inch, which is just about what I need. So for that, and this is a pretty big bead, so I'm going to give myself 6 inches of wire so that I have plenty to wrap with. And I'm going to slide on my bead down to about the halfway point of my wire, like so. I'm going to take one side of my wire and take it over to meet the other wire. And then I'm going to flip this around and go all the way back over to the other side of my bead. So I'm just wrapping it all the way around, like that. And then I'm going to bring the other wire over to the same side as the first wire, and then all the way around and back to the other side. Like so. I want my wires to chase each other and go around each other. So they're kind of wrapping nice and close, like that. And it depends on how tight you want your spiral to be. I want mine to be kind of tight because this bead is large. So there we go. Keep following each other around like a stalker. Just keep going until I have about an inch of wire left on each side. Like that. So that's what I have. So there, that's what I have. And now I'm just going to take each end of my wire and check and see that they're about the same length. This one is about an inch from the wrapped part. This one is about a little over an inch, about an inch and a 1/16. So I'm going to take that little tip off until I have it down to an inch. And again, grab something, turn that down in there. And it's trapped. Yay! All right. So this side has been wrapping around this way, and I know this camera makes everything backwards. So for me, it's clockwise. For you, I think it's counterclockwise. And I want to continue that. So I go around the curve, and then I'm going to go back around the other way with a little wave. So I'm just going to make that with my fingers. So I'm wrapping around and then I wave it. Same thing on the other side, wrapping around, and then I just give it a little curve, a little wave, like so. So let's see. Yes, that's good. So that's what I have. So now I'm going to take my pliers, my round nose pliers. I'm going to make a little tiny loop on the end, just the tiniest of loops, like this. This little tiny one down there where my fingertip is. So I'm going to make a little tiny loop that's going in the opposite direction of my curve. Here's my curve. I want my loop to go the other way. Tiny little loop. Because this needs to fit through this little guy right there. So when I get about a 3/4 of the way around, I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to squeeze that until I have just a tiny little nub of a loop. Get as close, as small as I can make it so that it'll fit through my split ring. And now I'm going to take my pliers. I'm going to go all the way back to the biggest part of my pliers. And I'm going to wrap that around until I have a shepherd's hook. So there's 1/2 of my hook. I'm going to go around to the other side and I'm going to do the same thing. Make a tiny little loop, just kind of close it up about 3/4 of the way, grabbing that little tip there. It's going to fight you because it's like, no, I don't want to bend. That's why I use my finger as leverage. And once I get a little curve, kind of hang free. See, spoke too soon. Yeah. Okay, so I get it 3/4 of the way around. Teeny tiny bit more. There we go. Then I take my pliers and I push the bottom, which is the part with the opening, towards the top, which is the rounded part. So I just push that until I have a very small, tiny little loop that will fit through my split ring. Nice and easy. And then I'm going to take my pliers, slide my wire all the way down to the very back, and make a loop over in the direction of that curve that I have there until I have a shepherd's hook. And there we have it. Looks like a little two-headed swan. And there's my hook that I'm going to attach to my bracelet, like so. Now, what I like to do is give it a little bit of work over so that it'll work harden it, give it some strength. And you can also take your little mallet. I guard my my little bead and just tap the ends. Other side. Flip it over. And the other side. Go. And now I like to close this up. I like to push it back just beyond the expanded wire. And then when you let go, it will back up against that wire. So that way I know when I slide it on, it'll be nice and tight and it won't open up too much. It'll come off when you want it to come off, when you take it off, but it won't slide out. And there is our bracelet. Isn't that lovely? Let's get a better look. Oh, I like cute little links. And again, like I said, if you have a larger wrist, if I had tried to put another one of these on here, I would have ended up with a bracelet that was too big, or the same with putting another bead on. All I could do is I just needed to make a little bit of a chain in order to finish it. And because I didn't want a chain all the way down, I wanted to kind of decorate it a little bit more on my clasp. And that's why I decided to go ahead and make this pretty wrapped clasp. And so there we go. There's our bracelet, our herringbone wrapped focal bracelet. And then our clasp kind of matches the pattern a little bit. And so does the shape of my links. I love it. Let's get a good look there. There it is. Yeah, let's move it up. So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. There's our finished piece. Awesome. Yay! Ta-da! I love it. I mean, it's almost as if you don't know which side is the right side. It doesn't really matter. So if it flips over on your arm, you have something pretty to look at on the other side as well. Yay. Awesome. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. So anyway, let's go back to the big camera. There it is. There's my bracelet. It looks awesome on both sides. What could be better than that? Let me get a good close-up here. Here we go. There's one side. There's the other side. Ta-da! Oh, I can't get it straight. Get straight. There we go. There's my focal. Oh, I can't. My arm. Okay, there we go. And there is the clasp. I could wear it either way, really. I could flip it around and wear the clasp on top. Look at that. That's kind of awesome. Yeah. Up to you. I love it. And I love that I was able to take this little pattern, this little link, this little earring link hoop and make it into a link. That's so awesome. I mean, if you can do it for regular hoops, I mean, you use little circles, make them bigger to make your earring, take a little shape that you have on your ears, make it smaller to make a link. I mean, it's just not rocket science. It works. I am happy. Anyway, for those of you getting kits, you can tell I'm excited. For those of you getting kits, you'll be getting 20 gauge wire and 22 gauge wire, as well as some of these beads. And I should have looked this up. I think it's a zebra jasper or something like that. Some of these or some of the red vein. And they're a nice long oval shape. And they really come out pretty when you do a herringbone wrap. Again, I've seen herringbone wraps done many times with round beads, but I just wanted to do something different, and I did that with some earrings on a video. But when I did this one, I thought it was so pretty. I mean, it was just so different than I usually see herringbone wraps look. So I said, well, why don't I do that? I kept looking at it every time I put it on, and I thought, why haven't I done a video with that? That was just for me, and why not? So that's what I did. And when I saw the similarity of shape of the earrings that we did, and I thought, well, that could easily be a link, and it is. It's perfect. And then you add the beaded wrapped clasp to it, and you have a really neat bracelet. So we just took 3 different kinds of things that we've done in the past, put them together, and made a statement piece. And I am loving it. So again, those of you who get a kit, you'll get 20 gauge wire and 22 gauge wire, one of the focal beads, a couple of the beads to use for your attachment part of the bracelet, attachment part of your bracelet, and a bead to use for your wrapped clasp. You'll have enough wire that you can either make an extra link if you want to make an extra link if you want to do that, or if you want to do what I did and just make a chain, you can do that as well. So you'll have all of those things in your packet. And I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know, and please let me see your finished project. I know I was going slow as molasses on this, so I hope this isn't too long, but I have a bad feeling that this is going to be a long video. So I hope that you're patient with me and that you enjoyed it one way or the other, and that you will come back and do more with us and show us your finished product. And don't forget, once you've made your piece, if you're in the DeKalb County area where the libraries are that have the kits, and that's Toco Hills, Decatur, Chamblee, and Wesley Chapel. And if you're in the Decatur area and you get a kit, or if you use your own materials and you make some of these items, if you post it on Facebook, darn, I should have brought a sample. If you post it on Facebook, I'm doing some drawings, and the first drawing that I need at least 10 people to participate in the first drawing. So every time I have 10 people, I'll do another drawing. So that will hopefully prompt you to get moving and get things posted. And you'll be entered into a drawing for a prize. I know I'm doing a beading design board as at least one of the prizes. So get your design in, get your opportunity to win a prize, and we'll see you next time. Until then, enjoy your week, enjoy your weekend, and so long. Bye-bye.